Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Nile and Gerry Tea Podcast, a Magic the Gathering podcast about the community, competitive scene, how to be a good person, all those cool things. I am your host, Nile Joan Rivers. Joined with me, as always, is Jerry Thompson, the T in Gerry Tea. How you doing, Jerry?
I'm good. Just woke up from a nap, as per usual.
Classic Ger-Bear. If you missed last week, we had a nice little Pride episode. Happy Pride, still in the month of June. Happy Pride, happy Pride. Also raising some money for Birds of Paradise, which the auctions that we started last week should be over by the time that you're hearing this, but more will be coming up. So pay attention to that. Including, I believe, the ability to win a seat at a celebrity vintage cube draft in Vegas, which is gonna be pretty sick. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, pause warriors. Now's your time to pause the video or the audio and go like and comment and tell your friends and text your mom. So do all that and then come back. Welcome back, pause warriors. Jerry, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I got curious and I wanted to see how the auctions did. So now I'm checking that.
Yeah, they're moving. I think basically everything's been bid on.
Oh, 16
Uh
hours left as of when we're recording.
yeah, get on it.
Go,
Um
go,
I'll
go. No
I'll tell you a little
pausing.
I'll tell you a little secret. I'll tell you a little secret. I
What?
am the high bidder on the Force of Wills.
You already owned them.
I did, but I owned them for this, you know? So
Yeah.
so I put them up, and then after I put them up, I was like, "I kinda want them." So, I'll pay Bop. I'll pay Bop, no problem. But yeah, really hoping to win those as I love them. But anyways, tonight we've got a real special one as we are just a week away from Pro Tour Final Fantasy in Las Vegas, the city that never should have existed. 1 week away from the Pro Tour, the question on everybody's mind, I get 1,000 of these in my email every single day. Niall, how do you get on the Pro Tour? And I forward every single one to Jerry because I've never been on the Pro Tour. Jerry,
I think
how do you
I think
how
that's
do you get on the Pro
reasonable
Tour?
because I've been on the pro tour a lot.
Yeah.
And I guess it's two different things to qualify for the pro tour and then to do well at the pro tour. And
Yeah.
it did not take super long for me to qualify, but again, this is in the way back days. Things were a little bit different. Dare say it was a little bit easier back then, too.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but for me to do well on the pro tour took like a decade. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a common story, at least from my own observations of like, because I know a lot of people in the space. And so I feel like every season, I've got multiple friends where I'm like, oh shit, they made the Pro Tour for the first time. That's so cool. Like really excited, really hyped. And they go to their first Pro Tour and they do like medium to poorly, usually, which is reasonable. It's like the hardest tournament you can do in Magic. But it just feels so common that like almost it feels like no matter how hard they prepare for it, it is just hard to really understand what it's going to be like until they do it. There are of course exceptions to this, but it feels like it happens a lot.
yeah, I think that it is certainly a more rare case for someone to do everything right the first time around
Mhm.
because I think there are just so many potential pitfalls for you to fall into where back in my day, for example, there was this big narrative on like which teams broke the format and things like that, which kind of ingrained into me this notion that like if you wanted to succeed, you probably had to be doing something that was pretty special. But I think that back then that was overstated. And especially with how things are today, it just like doesn't happen very often because so many games are getting played online. And oftentimes these pro tours are taking place in formats that have, for the most part, been figured out already. So, like, what can you do in terms of break it? It's a myth. It just doesn't exist. And for the most part, I think that if you were going to, any sort of like spotlight series or regional championship or anything like that, you would just play a good deck that you knew well. And that should certainly translate well to the Pro Tour too, because that's probably how you got on the Pro Tour in the first place.
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels like a thing that we've talked about so many times where sort of the mindset that you have going into really any game of Magic has such a huge impact. Where, we hear time and time again people being like, yeah, I went to this RC and felt like I was playing at FNM, just kind of like in that mindset the whole time and qualified for the Pro Tour for the first time. Or I don't know. I don't want to say it's like when people prepare the least, because I don't think that's it, but it's like there is some sort of correlation between I didn't prepare as hard as I normally do for this event, and thus I didn't put as big of expectations on myself for this event, and that let me play more comfortably.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come down to people putting undue pressure on themselves, certainly. And I don't know if that was where I was at like the first time. The first time I played was also a weird experience because it was a team pro tour. That was my first pro tour. And so there
Team
were
Pro Tour?
yeah, it was team sealed day 1 and team Rochester draft day 2.
How does that work?
You get handed 12 packs and you build 3 sealed decks.
Like you can like swap cards between them?
Not like in between matches, it's just like you have
But I mean,
one
like
really big
your
tool.
team gets 12, not like
Correct.
you get 4. Okay, yeah, yeah, sure.
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
so it
crazy.
I wasn't I wasn't off on an island by myself, it was like I was there with these people, and I think that made it a lot easier, but then the second one was individual, and, it was extended, which is kinda like modern effectively. Uh,
Mhm,
Even though I think, like, the old version of extended has fewer cards in it than current standard does, so, like,
that's
again,
crazy.
things were very different. But, yeah, at that point, I was like, "Well, I have to break it. I have to play, like, the best, fastest combo deck or whatever." And not only did I not find what the fastest combo deck was, I did not have the best version of the bad combo deck that I had, and also, I had never played combo before. But
Yeah, that seems
why would I
tricky.
do this? Yeah, this is not rational.
Yeah,
But there's just like so much pressure to like, oh, well now I'm here. I have to perform well because, what does that say about me otherwise? And then you rather than doing what you normally do, you just buy into all this stuff about like you hear about the best players or whatever. And it just doesn't line up. It doesn't behoove you to do any of that, to not remain true to yourself or anything. But I don't know. I guess backing up a little bit, uh the things that helped me qualify the most were definitely a combination of luck and privilege. And I think that that can't be understated really because I was not certainly well off or anything, but I had been working since the time I was 15 and I was like trying to save money and didn't have really shit else going on in my life, didn't have like responsibilities or whatever. Like I was a child. I think it is way more difficult for someone who has like a family, a partner, like any of those sorts of things to be able to dedicate the time that they need. But like me as a child, like I could just, to my
you just no
detriment.
lifed it. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
you
no
just no
life it,
lifed it.
ignore school. Uh,
Yeah.
Eventually, like once I was out of school, I was just playing Magic Online for 12 hours a day, that kind of thing. And it's just, yeah, you can definitely find ways to practice and like hone your craft in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing that I think people really don't appreciate enough, which is the privilege of it all and how advantaged someone is the more just kind of like free time that they have. And free time is at a premium the less privilege that you possess. But it just, I mean, like you said, like you have a family, you have a partner, you have a long stressful job. When are you supposed to be like practicing, grinding, all that stuff? But also, people with those things do make it to the Pro Tour. People with those things do well on the Pro Tour. So like what are they doing that's different?
Well, they do, but I think that a lot of the getting good came before those things, before those
Mhm.
priorities happen in life. That would be my guess.
In the fundamentals, and then they got a family.
Yeah, and then at that point, I mean, uh, person who I do another podcast with, Dave Shields, is very much in this situation, like wife, 2 kids, demanding job, etc. And he does whatever he can to like sneak in a game here or there or whatever. Does his best to like pay attention, look at deck lists, stuff like that. But yeah, very much does not get the amount of time that he would prefer to dedicate to it. But like recognizes that magic is, you know, a distant thing of importance in his life, right? So
Hmm.
uh I guess maybe he's not the best example because it's not like he's been, you know, top 8 pro tours or anything, but I honestly can't think of anyone off the top of my head who sort of fits that criteria.
Yeah. Well, so for me, again, as someone who's never been on the Pro Tour, and I wouldn't even say I have like Pro Tour aspirations. You know, like early in my Magic career, I made the conscious decision of I'm gonna more so pursue the content side of this than I am the competitive side of this. And I do not regret that whatsoever. But in making that decision, like I knew even then that all of my competitive endeavors would suffer greatly because all the time that I would have been spending on that, I am now spending on this other thing that takes a ton of time. And that is still true, but playing competitively is like a passion of mine. It's like a thing I enjoy doing and I think is fun. So I still wanted to do it. So the way I kind of had it both ways is I still prioritized all of this stuff, all the content stuff, but the little bits of time that I could find for practicing, I tried to be practicing so intentionally. You know, like anytime that I am like I will not just be like, okay, I have 2 hours, I'm gonna play, you know, 3 matches or whatever. I will be like, I'm gonna play one, maybe 2 matches, but I'm going to record them and review them and like take notes on them. You know, like I try to maximize what little time I do have. And I've noticed in doing so that it's had such a appreciably better impact on my skill level than the time when I wasn't focusing on content and I was just like grinding, grinding, grinding. Because that was more just like absent-mindedly jam game, jam game, jam game. And there's like I really do believe there's such value to just like jamming a bunch of games, even on like a subconscious level. But it's just like so much noticeably cleaner and faster when I'm like really intentionally practicing.
I think the game jamming thing is valuable when you don't know a format or you are just starting out because like you mentioned the
Mhm,
subconscious thing. I think that that is huge and it's not a thing that you can necessarily quantify. It's basically like I feel the effects of when I am super well practiced in a format versus not, like playing in those events where just immediately I can make decisions a lot quicker and basically play on autopilot effectively rather than having to force myself to think about every single thing in the moment, which granted it can be a good thing. Because I do think that the autopilot stuff can just be dangerous too. If you're like, oh, well, I'm bored, I'm just not going to pay attention.
mhm,
But I think that is what you're speaking to is just like how to learn something. And
mhm,
I don't think people are very good at that, unfortunately. Like, I think I'm pretty dumb, honestly. I am not educated, but I do think that I know how to learn things. And I certainly took that approach in terms of trying to figure out magic and trying to learn as much as I can and trying to be intentional about it and how you spend your time with it. And I think that that is
mhm,
huge. So even less than just like I'm going to play like 2 matches and record them versus you know playing the third, I'm going to rewatch. I generally have a specific amount of things that I just have questions about where it's like how does this sideboard plan feel in this matchup? Like I want to play this specific thing and go
mhm,
from there. Whereas I think people were just like, well, I don't know whether or not my deck is locked in or not. So I'm just gonna like play some games on ladder or whatever. And it's like, well, that doesn't tell you anything. Like you need to
mhm.
know what you don't know before you can really proceed with anything.
Yeah, and I mean, that is I think one of the really hard parts about the game is figuring out what you don't know or what you should be working on or what matters when you're practicing. Something that always felt very mystified to me for a long time was what fundamentals even are in Magic. I would hear people talk a lot about like, "Oh, work on the fundamentals, blah 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 blah." But it's like, what is that? What does that mean? And I think the thing that altered my brain chemistry on that the most is when I started taking limited really seriously. And just from playing a ton of limited and getting good at limited, I started to understand the fundamentals better. Like I started to understand things like, oh, I don't have to actually answer this threat that you have presented because I've got a faster clock, or because I know 3 turns from now, I'm gonna play a creature that beats it, and I can deal with 3 turns of you just having this unchecked. Like, having, like, a better sense of, like, the macro game that is being played between us, and also a tighter sense of the micro decisions. Because in limited, you really like, you have to maximize every single card that you play, right? Like, you really wanna, like, get the most value, most bang for your buck constantly. And doing all that for so long made me be like, "Oh, I get it." Like, I get what these fundamentals are now, but no one ever like, it's just not a thing I think people clearly and cleanly explain, especially to newer players and especially to newer competitive players.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tricky things about this is that the Pro Tour typically includes some amount of limited, and all the stuff that you do to qualify for the Pro Tour is playing constructed. And so that's kind of a whole separate thing to me is that, well, once you get to the Pro Tour, you then have to learn how to draft. And
Yeah.
I think that that is very difficult. And dear God, please do that beforehand. Please start doing it before
Yeah.
you have qualified or whatever, because it does help. Like what you're speaking to, like the just fundamentals in terms of how to attack and block correctly and be able to like read those
Mhm.
kinds of board states, especially if you're a person who normally plays like an uninteractive controller combo deck, right? Like just getting used to those sorts of things. Uh, but concepts like who's the beatdown, I think are uh not more applicable than limited, but like I feel like it is constantly changing more so than it is in a game of like standard or modern where those roles are kind of defined just inherently based on the matchup. Whereas in limited can change just dramatically turn over turn. And I think, yeah, people just need to do that more.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a thing of repetition's really big there, intentionally practicing's really big there, and, I mean, kinda what you're speaking to, learning how to learn. A lot of people are, I think, pretty bad at it. Like, the reason I practice Magic the way that I do, aside from just the time restraints that I have, is because of habits that I picked up when I was playing a bunch of fighting games. Because I was in a kind of similar situation where I was really passionate about playing Mortal Kombat 10 competitively, but I didn't have a ton of time to do so. I had a job, I had a partner, I had all this stuff going on. So where all of my friends were just like playing online and just climbing ladder when they would practice, I would go into the practice room and just be like, I'm gonna execute this combo 50 times in a row. I'm gonna do this just neutral attack and like try to get a really good feeling for the maximum distance I can hit from this. I'm gonna do whatever. Like I'm gonna do all these things where I'm like very legitimately, very intentionally practicing. And I got so much better than all of my friends so fast. And that was like that really unlocked something in my brain where I was like, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you take a thing that you don't understand and you understand it. And so that's been my approach to learning really anything is to, really like do it, review it, have intentional things that you're trying to like learn and work on and not
Yeah,
just like, play.
yeah, agreed. It has to be intentional and it has to be like structured and feel kind of like work. Whereas people are just like, well, I'm just gonna keep playing this game that I enjoy and I'm gonna call it playtesting, even
Mhm.
though there is no testing involved. You are just playing games for fun because you enjoy it. And I think that that is just one of those things where it's like someone's goals that they say that they have do not line up with their actions, where it's like, oh, I want to do well at this pro tour, but like this is my process. Is like, oh, I just play games for fun beforehand. And it's like, well, you gotta realize at some point that these things do not line up. Like one is not conducive to making the other happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like another I feel like we come back to this so many times, but I mean, really, it's just it resonates for so many different issues. The thing we talked about, I think episode 3, the hammer delusion, where if you just want to play, that's fine, but
Yeah.
say that. Your goal does not have to be make the pro tour. Again, my goal is not make the pro tour. If it was, I probably wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast. I'd probably be sitting here like taking that time to work on getting on the pro tour. But that's not my goal. And it doesn't have to be your goal either. But if it is your goal, you should be taking actions that advance that goal. And if you're not, why aren't you?
Yeah. People, I don't know, get confused. They're like, well, why'd you drop it 3-1 or whatever? And it's like, because I don't care about the pro tour. And they're just like, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Because I used to play on the PT and now I don't care about it anymore. But like my actions should have told you what my goals were.
Right.
And when your actions of just playing funsies games or like not spending a lot of time on it at all, are what you consider to be playtesting. No, it actually just tells me what your goals really are and what you prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it requires a level of self-awareness and really truly taking a look at what you yourself want. And I think this gets really tricky because of how social the game is, and you're almost always playing with people, you have friends, and maybe you're in this group and you and your group go to RCQs together. And maybe 3 out of the 5 people in your group truly care about making the pro tour, and then the other 2 of you are like, "Well, that's like our group's goal. We're all trying to make the pro tour." It's like, do you wanna make the pro tour or do your friends wanna make the pro tour and you wanna hang out with your friends? Because again, that's fine if that's your goal. That's a great goal.
Yeah.
It's a sick goal.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of didn't understand this when I was younger, where I really wanted to make the PT and like have that be a regular thing. And then I had this group of friends that I went to PTQs with, but I was always frustrated by like the lack of effort from them.
Mm.
Because it was like they would still go to like all the PTQs and we'd like fly to some GPs and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, no one seemed to be like as committed to it as I was, and I couldn't really understand why. Because it's like we're all doing the same stuff. But yeah, they just wanted to like play and sort of compete, but like did not have aspirations. But I think it was because like that was the thing that they were doing. It just became like, oh yeah, like we do want to qualify, but then clearly did not. So I wish that even in terms of like just being more self-aware about it, I wish like we could just like discuss that as a group too, because then instead of me being like, yo, let's play this matchup, and them being like, I don't feel like it, I'm gonna go watch TV or whatever. We could just have a conversation about like what each of our goals are, and then I would not be frustrated by asking them these things. I would just try to figure out how to do it on my own because clearly I'm the only one that wanted to put in effort on this. They were busy doing other stuff.
There was a period of my life where I was very seriously into weightlifting, and I had like a full home gym set up, like a squat rack, all this stuff. And I would not miss gym days, right? Like I was consistent. I was doing everything right. I was strong as fuck, Jerry. And something I learned during that time was that people around me would see me getting stronger and stronger, and they'd be like, "I wanna work out with you." And I would always be like, "Yeah, hell yeah," you know? I mean, just like with magic, how I love getting new people into it, I loved getting new people into working out. So, they would work out with me, and we'd work out together for, like, a week or 2, and then they would start to fall off, you know?
Mhm.
Just because they just weren't as serious about it as me, which is fine. But what I figured out was them falling off would increase the chance that I would, like, miss gym days, because we would have planned, like, "All right, it's Wednesday, leg day, whatever, let's go," and then, like, 30 minutes before, they'd be like, I had a really stressful day at work, I'm gonna skip, do it without me," and then I'd be like, "Well, if they're skipping, I guess I'll skip too, whatever, we'll" all this stuff. It just, like, I don't know, it's like it's certainly not their fault, I'm not blaming them, like, it's my choice to not do it or to do it, but I found that for me, it just made it too easy to lose my discipline that I had before. So I started getting to the point where I was just like, "Hey, I would love to work out with you, but like this is like a sacred temple to me and I can't invite you into it." Like our goals just like are not aligned. Uh Except for my friends who were also really serious about it. And working out with them was awesome.
Yeah.
But that was kinda like the thing that I had to, like, observe and identify, be like, "Hey, these are my friends, I really like them, but we are not on the same page about what we're trying to do with weightlifting, and it is just not good for me and my goals for us to keep working together, so we'll just, like, keep hanging out and working out separately." And then my friends who are like, "Yeah, this is my shit." Be like, "Great, we can work out together and, build each other up and blah, blah, blah." And I feel like it works the same for magic, like I feel like I know so many people who are on these like big testing teams and all this stuff. And it's like you could just go through and be like, all right, well, these 6 people really care. And these 5 people sort of care. And these 4 people don't really care at all. And like the 9 people who are at like lower levels of caring about it will be like, what if we all played, you know, League of Legends tonight instead? And it's like, well, sure, I guess we can take a league night instead of, and it's like, I don't know, like it would just be better if we could all sit down and be like, hey, let's hang out and play league together. But me and these 5 people who really give a shit about making the pro tour are gonna try to make the pro tour together. And
Yep.
we're gonna miss a lot of league nights to do it.
Yeah, it is kind of wild because it does sort of rub off both ways, right? Like their I don't know, lackadaisical attitude towards the thing can like kind of rub off on you in terms of the gym
Mhm,
stuff. Occasionally, your try hardness can rub off on them for a little bit, but it's not
mhm,
going to last either way.
right.
So, yeah, definitely try to find people with similar goals to you. And I feel like, I mean, it's worth a conversation with someone, but people will often lie to you, but that's only because they're also lying to themselves. I don't think any of it is really done with malice or anything, but someone may say like, "Oh yeah, I really want to make the pro tour," but then, from their actions you can tell that they don't actually care. But yeah, just if you are that kind of person, you can find plenty of people who are doing the competitive thing like semi-casually. I think like that is honestly kind of where most people are at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like I wanna be so careful because I don't wanna come off as like, I don't have friends, they disappoint me, Like, I love having friends. I love hanging out with my friends. I, do not feel like my friends are at all an obstacle in the things that I do, but a big part of that is because I am pretty clear in my communication to my friends of, like, what my goals are and where my priorities are. Even, like, in the middle of my content creating journey, I hit the point where I was like, "Oh, okay. This could be, like, a legitimate career for me, but it's going to require that I, like, really, like, step on the gas and put a fuck ton of work into it."
Yeah.
And I texted a bunch of friends and I was like, "Hey, these are my goals. This is what I'm gonna be trying to do. Uh, you are going to hear from me so much less, and it is not because I like you less or wanna hang out with you less. It is just for the next, like, 2 to 5 years, you should expect me to be prioritizing my time in this stuff." And I greatly appreciate all of my friends who were chill with that, which was every single one of them, and very understanding and are still there, and that's awesome. But I think it would have gone down much worse if I would have never communicated this. I would have tried to be like, oh no, I can definitely do both. And then just end up me disappointing all my friends. And then they get mad. And then there's like bad blood. And then like friendships end. No, I was just like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be around as much because I'm working on this thing." And you're like, "That's sick. Good luck."
Yeah.
And then anytime I would have, a random Sunday, I'd be like, "Hey, let's hang out," and we'd hang out. And it'd be great. And you can just do that. You can just tell your friends what you want from the relationship,
Yep. Weird.
and what you want can
We
change.
True. Also true. Hey, I'm not doing this thing anymore. I got a lot of time now.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. You just have to talk.
Yeah, I have various groups of friends, and I'm like the weirdo, sicko, like psychopath kind of person, where
Mhm.
if I do a thing, I want to go super hard in it. I want to learn as much as I can. I want to get
Mhm.
as good at it as I can be. And there aren't many people like that, honestly. So I have a bunch of different groups of friends, and they're not all the same as me. In fact, like very few of them are the same as me. And I have to kind of like temper not maybe like temper who I am sort of, but sort of just like recalibrate how I approach things to be with them, because it's like I can't, if they're playing a game, I can't come at it from like the psychopath angle, right? Because we're not going to connect that way. And it's
Right,
like
yeah.
I just have to meet them where they are. And it's like, "Oh, you just want to like mess around and do the fishing game or whatever in the RPG or whatever." Like, yeah, that's cool.
Mhm.
We'll just sit around and like do that, and I'll try to enjoy that, you know? But yeah, trying to expect them to want to do the other thing or not do the silly thing or whatever is would be silly of me, you know?
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, you gotta figure out where you both are and where your, like, common ground and expectations are, and then just live there.
Exactly.
But okay,
And
let's say someone's this far into the episode, and they're sitting there like, "I've got this shit down. I've got the social side of it down. I've got setting expectations with my friends down. I've got self awareness down pat. I want to make the pro tour. Brass tacks, Jerry. What are just some like things they gotta be doing? Do they have to be grinding a certain amount, going to a certain amount of events? What should they start doing if they've done all this other shit?
well, already I'm very skeptical if you're like, "No, I swear I'm self-aware." You know?
Sure.
That to me is kind of a red flag. But it's a boy who cried wolf situation. You never know. Occasionally you might find
Yeah.
someone who is actually self-aware. But
Yeah.
uh my journey mostly consisted of trying to consume as much information as possible, and I think that that is a lot more difficult these days because everything is like behind a random Patreon, and it is like the
Mhm.
Spark Notes version more so than like, oh, here's an in-depth article on like how to play this deck or whatever. It's like, no, this is just an in and out sideboarding guide. And if you are looking for more and more information about things, about a deck or a format or whatever, that might be a little bit more difficult to find. But that might be where the social aspect comes in, you know?
Mhm.
You can just talk to people and ask like, "Hey, how well versed are you on this thing, and would you mind trying to get me up to speed or whatever?" I think plenty of people out there would be willing to help, and presumably there's some sort of like quid pro quo there that you could help them with, you know? But yeah, I dove into everything. I read every single article, and by doing that, I was able to then figure out who tended to be right more often and who tended to be kind of full of
Mhm.
shit. Just kind of writing things to write things or whatever. Like you can just kind of tell in a lot of instances how the information is presented, like whether or not the person actually knows what they're talking about or not. So, consume as much as possible. Magic Online posts these deck lists every day. mtgo.com/deck lists. You can find the results from like all the leagues, all the challenges, see what people are doing online. Pay attention to that. Look at those deck lists, go through, and don't just be like, oh, Boros list, moving on, because you can get a lot more information by looking at the specifics of the deck list and also how those deck lists evolve, because for the most part people don't change stuff, like they just copy paste what won the last week. But
Mhm.
when a change does happen to a deck list, someone made that change intentionally, and you can kind of figure out like, oh, why did they do this, where does this help? You just get to extrapolate that information by watching the changes happen. So definitely do that. And then if there are people you find where you're like, oh, this person always seems to be like on the cutting edge or whatever, like you can also just search for them by username. So all of that stuff, you end up figuring out like where is good information and where is bad. So
Yeah, I
the
think
interesting,
especially for, like, specific decks, it's so quick to be like, "Dom Harvey's the Amulet guy." Like, if he
yeah,
posts some shit about Amulet, you should read it if Amulet's what you're about. Like, the same is true for Yogg players, energy play like, everyone's got, like their own little group of, oh yeah, this person posts smart shit about this deck.
Yeah, and there are discords for a lot of those archetypes too, especially
Hmm.
for a thing
Hmm.
like modern where yeah,
Hmm.
like they're just Yogg enjoyers, right? And it makes sense that they would get a community. Are you in the Yogg Discord? Yeah,
Question,
see,
Jerry.
I
I
knew it.
think
I
I no,
knew it.
I think that I am. It's tough though because I'm in so many discords and I mute every discord as soon as I join it. You invite
Same.
me to your Discord server, I'm going to mute. I'm muting everything. Uh so I don't actually know because I also don't really check much of any of the discords that I'm a part of.
I think
So
I'm only
probably
in I think I'm only in 20 discords currently. I just counted.
that's
And
crazy.
I have them all sorted into nice little
Oh my
groups.
god, not me. I am just my whole Discord is just a mess of unread notifications and unsorted discords that I should just like leave. It's just ugh.
Yeah, clean house.
No, I don't think I will.
Mari Kondo that business.
It's just I think I'm at a point where I need to make a new Discord. You know, like I need to just like burn this one and salt the earth. Like you know how like sometimes like you have like an email address that's like this is my real email address. And then I have this other one that's old that's like my junk email that I put into sites that look sketchy. And that one has like 50,000 pieces of unread mail. And the one that's actually your thing has like 2 pieces of unread mail. But then you keep using your real email long enough, and eventually it suffers from the same fate. And then you have to spin up your third email and be
Yep.
like, okay, this one's going to be the clean, keep it organized. It's a losing game. It's a losing game.
No. My main email is now more so my junk email than anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it.
You got to make a new email address.
I
I'll
don't
get you Jerry at nileandjerryt.com. Don't worry.
all right. I mean, that shit costs money. I wasn't trying to pay for it.
Barely. Barely does it cost money.
It's
Probably
like
like
5 or 10
12
bucks a
bucks a
year.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've said
It's not
it, if I
nothing.
don't buy it tonight, someone's gonna buy it tomorrow, and then they're gonna be like $10,000 for nileandjerryt.com. And I'll be like, no, you can have it forever.
Yeah, you win. Are you
You
happy?
win. So if you want to do that, you
You
can do that. I'm not gonna pay you. I will not negotiate with cyber terror.
No, me either. Once you figured out how to consume the info, what to do with the info is a little bit tougher. What I am good at doing, and I think this is the thing that maybe I'm inherently good at. I don't know exactly what would cause this or whatever, but after years of practice and years of consuming information, now if you show me like 3 different Boros decks, I will take the parts from each of them that I like and put them together into the best version of Boros. And I can do that pretty easily. But I think a lot of people are going to look at a thing and be like, "Well, I think I like this part." And it's like, "Nope, that's wrong. That's the bad part."
Yeah.
Like you got to
That piece
train
is rotten.
yourself. Yeah,
Mhm.
it is rotten. Like how can you not tell that that's rotten? It's just very obvious.
Mhm.
Uh that you have to train yourself. That's like another stage in your evolution as a Magic player and deck tuner and that sort of thing. So, I think
I I feel like that's a really good practice also just because of the number of times I've seen someone like spike some tournament and then their list becomes the list for a while. And then they'll make a post like, hey, the reason I only ran 2 of these in the sideboard is because I couldn't find my other 2. Like I would run 4. And it's like now all these people are running 2 fewer of this card than they should
yep,
because they just copy and paste it. I talked to Gavin about this once, and he said that when he was competing, he would often put like one snow basic in his list so that he could always track who just like copy and pasted his list from like a thing he would
yep.
do and be like, "Ah, the snow mountain. I see." But that was
Yeah,
really funny.
I this actually happened the other day where I saw that my friend like top 16 to thing or whatever and he had
Mhm.
snow islands. And I was like, "What's the deal with this?" And he was like, "Well, you know." And I was like, "No, I want you to say it." And he's like, "Yeah, I just copy pasted from someone else."
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I mean, I feel like again, it's just a good practice to when you copy and paste a deck, look through it and look at all the cards, and be like, "Why is that here? Do I want this? Do I care about this card?" And I think that is a thing that just becomes easier to do the more familiar you are with a format and a deck. Like the only instance where I really feel comfortable doing this is looking at Yogg lists for modern. Where like if I'm gonna go to an event and I just take a Yogg list from somebody, I can very quickly do the Jerry thing and take it apart and be like, no, I don't need that. There was a while where I was noticing a lot of people after the One Ring got banned. Here's a little Yogg history for everyone. Yogg has historically always played Blood Artist. So that way, when you start doing your Yogg stuff and you're sacking young Wheezies over and over, you just ping someone down, win the game, of course. One Ring gets printed, and Lord of the Rings gives people protection. Blood Artist targets a player. This is a problem. So everyone switches to using Zulaport Cutthroat, who does not target when he pings. So Zulaport Cutthroat's the guy for a while, but Blood Artist would be preferred if the One Ring didn't exist. One Ring gets banned in Modern, and still for months and months, I would see people registering these Yogg lists with Zulaport Cutthroat.
Yep.
And I'm like, do you not understand why we're playing Zulaport? Like, do you
Yeah.
not? And the answer is maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they definitely didn't think about it when they registered their deck. And it would have taken 2 seconds to just be like Zulaport Cutthroat. That should just be Blood Artist.
Yeah.
It just makes more sense for that to be Blood Artist, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Too much of that going on in the way that things are currently. But that's sort of what I was talking about in terms of like the casual competitive nature of it. It's like people do want to compete, but they don't want to work too hard to have to do that, right? So it is
Hmm.
much easier to just copy a thing and go. And then things like that happen where it's like, oh yeah, because you copied a person who copied a person who copied a person, and this has been going on for months now. You just have like this really weird looking deck that is still pretty outdated.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. It feels almost like you're less so really studying your craft and almost more so chasing a feeling that you have either felt or started to feel or built up in your head, where you're like, you're chasing this dragon of, oh, but what if I just do really well? What if I just win this event? Wouldn't that feel so good? And it's like, yeah, probably. But what do you think are the steps that are going to lead to you winning this event? Maybe you'll
Yeah.
just get super lucky a bunch of matches in a row, but I would rather depend as little on luck as possible.
I am looking at updated Yogg lists, and the first two I clicked on, one is a mashup of the Samwise combo, and then one is a mashup of the Brood Scale combo.
Yeah, Yogg's in a little bit of an identity crisis right now, unfortunately.
This one just has Overlord of the Bale Merc.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
all these lists are different, very different.
Yeah, Yogg is struggling at the moment. Yogg is struggling in modern.
Sneef. It's funny because Yogg is maybe the one deck that I can't do that with. It is like the deck that you
Really?
can do it with. Yeah, and
With our
it's just
powers combined,
yeah,
Jerry. With our
yeah.
powers combined, we can do all the modern decks.
Well, I'm sure that there are other Yoggers things that are similar,
Yeah, probably.
but you know, I mean, modern's a big format. I could do it with a lot of decks, just
Yeah,
not
yeah.
all of them.
Jerry and I collectively can do this to hundreds of decks.
True, very true. What else? I put on here get input from others, and that teams are kind of shit, and that is definitely true. Kind of for what you mentioned earlier. I don't know how much you want to get into that though.
Well, what the teams are kind of shit's a big statement. What do you mean when you say that?
I mean that you join a team, and team to me, I don't know, is like we all succeed together, but that is not the case with Magic, right? So like you would join like a basketball team to like succeed together. You join a Magic team, and it's like I'm hoping that someone on this team has some information that I can use. And it is just a group of people who are all trying to benefit off of each other, and very few, if any of them, are trying to help their team as a whole succeed. And I think that that setup, just in general, is like kind of toxic, kind of gross. I don't like it.
Yeah, I know we've touched on this a little bit before, and I know um some people have responded and said things like, specifically, I know we've had like Sanctum members reply and be like, I have personally found Sanctum to be very good at the
And I believe
playing
that.
as a team aspect of it. Yeah.
I believe
So
that.
there's definitely ways to do it right. It almost feels like there should just be a full episode on here about teams and playtesting and all that. So if you want a full episode about testing teams, leave a little comment. Pause warriors, reactivate, you know, just tell us that you want it and we'll do it. We'll do it. If like one of you tells us that you want it, we'll do it.
Oh, I'll happily do it. But yeah,
Sure, you'll do it if zero people tell us.
I was on a team once where I had my deck kind of locked in a couple days before the event and felt pretty comfortable in the draft formats. And then I was just going around to other people because, like, we're all playing sort of different decks,
Mhm,
just going
mhm,
around to other people who seemed unsure about their stuff and helping them with their decks, basically doing what I do on the outside, you know,
mhm,
but on the inside. And I got some really good feedback about that after the fact, where people were like, "Oh, like normally no one ever like helps me with my weirdo thing," and it was
it's
really nice
crazy.
and really helpful, and like the stuff that you told me to change was really good and blah blah. Blah. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, But then
Yeah,
also it got me thinking, like, why does no one do that? Like you're on the same team, and in theory, you're gonna continue teaming with these people. And
mhm,
wouldn't it be better for you long term if this person were also better,
mhm, totally.
But
Yeah,
everyone's like, I gotta
well,
get mine. I gotta get it right now.
let us know if you wanna hear more about teams being kinda shit.
That's the
But
nice
yeah,
way of putting it.
there's just a lot that goes into it. There's just a lot that goes in to getting on the Pro Tour. I feel like fundamentally, the big thing is just be true to yourself that that is what you wanna do and make choices that reflect that.
Yeah, I think that's true too. And again, if you come to this realization, like, oh, maybe I don't want this as bad as I think I did, like it would be nice if it happened, but I don't like this would not be a bucket list item. Then yeah, you can just take it more casually. And if you are not going to be putting in the time, it means that your mental health, both before and after events, is going to be so much better because if you don't have the bandwidth to put into it, you're probably going to keep falling short. And if you keep putting these heavy expectations on yourself to do well and qualify while also not having the bandwidth to practice and whatnot, you're going to feel pretty bad about that. But if you are realistic about it, it's like, oh yeah, it could be a fun thing. And it's like, wow, I got really close. Maybe if I put in like a little bit more effort, maybe, maybe I could get there. Who knows? But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's also important to remember that it does not have to be like an all or nothing thing. It does not have to be a thing of I like going to big tournaments and playing big tournaments with my friends and testing, like you can still do all the things that you like, just be honest about what your expectations are. Like I still play in some big tournaments, not as many as my friends who are like truly grinders about it, but still some. And I take them seriously, but I don't have the expectation of like, I need this. Really want to make the Pro Tour, whatever, whatever. And one, it definitely just improves my play because I'm going in with just no expectation on myself. And two, I've noticed it almost makes this like underdog vibe to all the people who do know me where, like, all my grinder friends get so excited if I do even, like, reasonably well, because 'cause they're like, "Yeah, she is not a grinder, but she did it," you know, "defied all odds," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I think that's sick, like, I think it's cool that, like, I don't feel like I miss out on, like, the communal aspect of it because I still feel, supported and encouraged, even though it's like, "Oh, you and I have different expectations and goals, and we're gonna approach this very differently." And also, like, yeah, kinda what you said, if I just bomb day 1, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go hang out with people, bye." Like,
yeah.
it's really, like, no problem.
Yeah, but you see,
I
you
love
see,
it.
like whenever someone gets really upset over a loss or whatever, I
Mhm.
I just generally feel like that is kind of what they're doing to themselves. Is like putting all that pressure on themselves and like, oh, I have to
Totally.
qualify, and it's rough to see, because they don't have to be going through all that.
Yeah. It is very rough. I was at this RCQ one time, and I'd gotten to, like, the round before the cut to top 8, and I was not undefeated. I think I had 1 loss, and I had done the math, and I was positive my opponent and I could draw. And I sit down, and I was like, "Hey, would you like to draw? I think we can draw into top 8." And he was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm really, like, unsure about the math on it. I think I would feel more comfortable if we just played." I was like, "Hey, that's no problem. We can definitely just play." So we play. He beats me game 1. We're having a good time. I beat him game 2. We're no longer having a good time. Like, his demeanor shifts entirely. Whatever, I get it. Uh, our 3rd game, we go to turns, and I basically get him with it was like something where, like, he had, like, my spells locked down, and he thought there was, like, no way I could get out of it, and I, like, Odawared or I Iganjo'd or something, and, like, got him in a way that he wasn't expecting, and won in turns, and I was like, "Hey, GG's," and he was, like, kinda shaking, and he's like, "I think I'm gonna go, like, cry about this," like, very seriously, like, upset, and then lock in our match result, and he's sitting there, like, head in his hand, looking at his phone, doing the math again, and being like, "I am just now realizing we could have drawn," and I was like, "Yeah, I tried to, like, tell you that, but there's only so much, like, I can say or do, you know?"
Yeah.
Uh so, like, I'm sorry, bad beats or whatever, but, like, it was such a striking moment to me because he was so upset. And, like, I had been in that position multiple times where, I spent a long time unable to top 8 even just RCQs, and it would always make me really upset. And it was this, like, I mean, like, we're talking about just the pressure I was putting on myself, and the pressure was building each and every time because I was like, "Come
Mhm.
on, like, I've done X amount of RCQs at this point, like, I have to top 8," uh, you know? And then as it became more and more clear that that wasn't gonna happen, it would just be more and more upsetting. And I've definitely cried over not top eighting events, or not day twoing events. But it was like it was almost like an out of body experience watching it from the other side of the table. Where at that point in my magic journey, I had top eighted plenty of times. The monkey was off my back. It was not a thing that stressed me out. And I was just like, "Man, I've been here." And I, like, really deeply empathized with him. But I was also just kinda like, "I have no idea how to get him out of here." Like, I got out of here just by, like, brute forcing my way through it and realizing, "Oh, hey, I should have just never put that pressure on myself." Probably would have top aided, like, 20 more RCQs, But
I
it
mean,
it was
if
it was
you
just very fascinating to see.
if you care about being able to make top 8, I don't know, learn how to do the top 8 math, or at least trust Nile when she says like, "Hey, bro, we're kind of
Yeah.
locked." I mean, maybe he was hearing all the weird stuff about girl math, like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
girl math seemed kind of weird to me. I also didn't really understand it, but
Yeah, it was I felt really bad for him, but, I was also like, "Hey, we played," and it got to, like, turns, it got to game 3 turns, so it wasn't like we played and I just stomped him, and then he was like, "Oh, no, I should have taken the draw," like, it coulda gone either way easily. Uh but yeah, it was just a real, like, it was like looking into the ghost of magic past for myself, where I was like, "I remember being here," and I
yeah,
truly like, that was not a guy that I knew, it was not like a friend of mine. If it had been, I know I would have been like, "I wanna help you get out of this, but I don't know how." Like, I truly, like, other than it just, like, coming from within you, I don't know how to absolve you of this.
yeah. I mean, it does have to come from within the person, though.
Yeah,
You can only
that's
do
tough.
so much, especially as a stranger.
Yeah, but Jerry, anything else you wanna add to how to make the Pro Tour and the things you gotta do to prepare?
I think one thing that did matter to me, and I feel like if your goal is to number one make the PT, you are probably already doing this, but do like keep your eye on the prize. Don't be like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, I'm in top 8 of this thing, and that feels nice. So like I'm just gonna be happy with that and kind of celebrate and uh just phone it in from here on out or whatever. It's like, no, it's not over yet, you
And
know?
now it's lock-in
And
time.
yeah, exactly. So I think where this has come up recently for folks is when I've known someone who is top 8 at an RC, where I'm like, I get that you're happy you have qualified, but also, like, this is a bigger deal than, like, all the other shit that you were thinking about beforehand. Like, now you're playing for tens of thousands of dollars, you're playing for another PT invite, the world's invite, you know? Like, I get that you're happy, but please, dear God, celebrate later. Like, you need
Hmm.
to get back to where you were.
Yeah, very sage wisdom from one Ger-Bear.
Eye on the
Well,
prize.
Jerry, it is the time of the episode, the Briar segment, as some are calling it, where we answer questions from viewers like you. If you'd like to send in questions to be read, you can email me, nilejohnrivers@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on Spotify or YouTube or wherever the fuck you're listening to this. Any way you can find to reach us, we will find your question. So our first question comes from Briar the Goat, and they say, as a Pio and recently modern player, I like where standard is currently, but have seen some Magic homies reminisce of the good old days of weaker power levels for the format. Though I personally just unfondly remember Hero's Downfall being $20 parentheses Canadian, while in standard and like 40 cents after LMAO. Is that
Yep.
just nostalgia speaking? Or are there benefits to a lower power standard pool? Now, Jerry, I'm gonna take a crack at this
Do it.
with less wisdom and information than you, and then I want you to correct any of my mistakes. I feel like the value to a lower power level standard is kind of what we were talking about earlier of fundamentals mattering more. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, games of Magic that feel like they rely heavily on fundamentals feel really satisfying and rewarding in a way that really high power standard feels different. So to me, a big a big value there is playing games that are more fundamentals based. Jerry, how did I do?
I think you did great. Uh, I think it comes down to agency, right? Uh,
Mhm,
and feeling like, oh, if I just get better at this whole magic thing, then the choices that I make will matter. But in a lot of instances, like take standard now, for example, there is this
mhm,
is it prowess deck. I was just checking. According to Goldfish, it's like 28% of the winner's metagame, which is kind of outrageous. And
mhm.
the deck has all 1 and 2 mana cards with a couple very powerful threes. It is more so functioning like a modern deck, more so than anything. Uh yeah, it is tough to really just be like, "Oh, well, I can simply just get good." And I'll have enough turns to like leverage my skill, but it's not true because they'll just kill you on turn 4 and their stuff's really good. And you have to like
Mhm,
hard target this one thing. You are just pigeonholed into doing a very specific thing, which
mhm.
which kind of sucks. It does remove a lot of the agency from it, and it does make it seem like, oh, instead of being good at this magic thing, you need a new skill, which is how do I beat up on this one very specific archetype, and that is
Without
less
losing
fun.
to the rest of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's way less fun, way less rewarding. I do think that the hero's downfall example is nostalgia for sure because
Sure.
that format was kind of the same. It was a lot of Abzan, a lot of Siege Rhino, and or if you're talking about Pack Rat, it was that. You know, like both of those heroes downfall formats were kind of terrible. But yeah, you may look back on them with rose-colored glasses and be like, "Oh, I love you, Pack Rat." But no, those games suck too. I don't know. Y'all don't remember?
It's so easy to rose-colored glasses because I remember saying during Nadu Summer over and over, "Hey, I just 5-0'd with this deck. Hey, I just top 8'd. I just won this event with this deck." And then every time finishing it with, "This deck fucking sucks to play with or against." It is
Yeah.
a nightmare play experience. I hate it. And now that it's been a while, I'll look back and be like, "That was kinda fun. I
Well,
miss Nadu
that's
Summer."
that's different. That was you playing with the broken deck, right?
Yeah,
That
but
wasn't
even when
you.
I'm saying, like, when I was playing with it, I thought, like, I hated it, you know? But
Yeah.
then looking back on it, I'm like, "That was sick.
Well,
What's up with
you're
that?"
probably winning a bunch.
I was winning a bunch. That did feel good.
Yeah, winning is tight. I mean, there are definitely formats where I was playing a broken deck,
Mhm.
and for whatever reason, like not everyone else is doing the same thing. People are not very good at trying to attack you, and they are just trying to treat it like a normal game of Magic. And they're like, oh yeah, fundamentally, my green white Fauna Shaman Vengevine deck is a sound Magic the Gathering deck, and I'm like, you're right. I will play Stoneforge Mystic. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't think those formats are good at all.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
do think that there were standard formats that were good. Specifically, this is maybe my nostalgia and my rose-colored glasses, but like the invasion era of standard decks, maybe onslaught too.
Sure. Well, Briar, hope that answers your question. We have one more here, and this one actually came from a Spotify comment. Did you know you can leave comments on Spotify? You should. Pause Warriors, a symbol. Pause the video and comment on
Wait,
Spotify.
does them leaving comments on Spotify do anything for us?
Surely. I don't know. I'm not a Spotify algorithm expert, but it's gotta, right? Like
Ah,
I
okay.
don't know. Every other platform, it would be awesome. So I assume it'll still be awesome. Leave a comment. Pause Warriors. See you in a second. Welcome back, Pause Warriors. Uh, this is from Cole. Cole says, do you consider the pin trick to be scummy? What about other similar mind games? Are they unethical, a natural part of playing the game, or just useless? And then we got a PS kicker question here. What do we think about Timeless on Arena? It is Cole's favorite format, and Mardu Energy is way more fun to play, at least for Cole, than it has any business being. Now, I have a question of this question, Jerry. What the
Is
fuck
it?
is the pin trick?
Yeah. Okay. So it's you're going to combat, right? You're thinking
Yeah,
about attacking me,
yeah.
and then I just go to pick up my pen because I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take the damage, and
Mm.
you see me reaching for my pen, you're like, oh, they're not going to block. I guess I'll attack them. Then I'm like, block.
Okay, I see. I see. I see.
Stupid,
Yeah.
stupid. I think
Uh,
people who focus on getting people with the pen trick or other mind games are never going to get better at Magic. They have plateaued.
mhm,
They're spending their time on this dumb shit that ultimately does not matter all that much. If you are somehow a like god Magic player already, none of them like these don't exist. This is not a thing. Then you can focus on this nonsense or whatever and like how to integrate it into your game. But I think people who even have that in their repertoire are thinking way too much about where and when they can implement it when you could just
mhm.
be spending that brain power on literally anything else that would be more beneficial.
Yeah, I there's a story that I love that is sort of related to this, which I'm sure you've heard, which is my my friend Carmen, extremely talented Magic player, was playing some event.
Scary opponent. Too good.
Scary opponent. Was playing some event, some tournament, and opponent has a fetch land in play. Carmen plays a Mishra's Bauble. Carmen is in a position in this game where she only loses to one card. I don't remember exactly what the card was. It was one of the charms, I'm pretty sure, but she only loses to that card. Anything else that this guy has on the top of his deck, she wins. So she bobbles him. He shows her the card. She lets out a sigh. She writes something on her life pad. She covers it with her hand. And the guy was like, "Oh, you have to show me what you wrote. Like that's public information." And she was like, "I don't think that I do have to tell you that." They get a judge involved. For the record, Carmen knows damn well that she does in fact have to share this
Yeah,
information.
this is
Yeah, it's
this is
well,
pen
hold on. I'm gonna get.
tricky,
I don't think
but
I'm gonna get to why this is my favorite story. But judge comes over. Carmen makes a. She really Hollywoods it. She's like, "Do I have to show this?" Judge is like, "Yes." She's like, "What if I took this piece of paper off my life pad and ate it? What would I have to do then?" And the judge is like, "Please don't. Like, please don't make it come to that." And Carmen's like, "Ugh, fine, whatever." Shows the guy the life pad. She had written the name of the one card that beats her as being on top of his deck. He doesn't crack his fetch land, doesn't want to shuffle, lose the card that wins him the game, goes to his turn, draws his card, basic land. Did the whole thing just to keep him from cracking his fetch and making like a incalculable how small of a percent gain it is to try and trick him into not cracking a fetch land there. That's one of my favorite stories because I think it's really funny how silly it is. Like it's such extreme lengths for such a tiny, tiny microscopic gain that does not really matter. And also like from someone who's just like such a good player that it just cracks me the fuck up. It just cracks me the fuck up that anyone would and that someone did and that someone is my good friend Carmen.
Next time I see her, I hope I remember to bring this up because I want to have like an hour long conversation with her about this.
Uh, it was definitely from her early years of grinding
Okay.
and competing,
Okay.
but really just so funny. Uh, Timeless on Arena. I loved it when it came out and very quickly stopped loving it. I don't remember what set came out. It might have been, I think it was Wilds of Eldraine that came out and had a bonus sheet that had like
Oh yeah.
necropotent,
Yeah.
and like some
All
stuff
the
and just like
nonsense.
fucked the format. But like the first month or two, I was playing I was playing these mono green Titan decks and that was sick. That was so
Mm,
fun.
I do remember this.
Um, and then as soon as WoW came out, I was like, I was done with the format forever, and I've never looked back. What are your thoughts, Jerry?
Haven't played, have looked at some deck lists that folks have posted, and I'm just like, man, y'all are not great at this. A lot
Yeah.
of lot of decks with like 2 Deathrite Shamans, a lot of decks with like 4 Deathrite Shamans and like 6 fetch lands. Like it's just one of those things where I'm like, y'all have not been around for very long and it shows.
Mhm.
And maybe you'll learn, maybe you'll figure this out. But there was also a thing where Ragavan and Deathrite were legal. And I saw decks with
Mm.
Ragavan and decks with Deathrite. And decks that could play both, but never played both. Simply just chose to play one or the other. I was like, sounds like you can play both of those in the same deck and it'd probably be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally.
there's a lot of stuff surrounding specifically Deathrite Shaman where I was like, this hurts my brain.
Sure. 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 Yeah. Well, Cole. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you again for leaving it. Thank you to everyone who comments on YouTube or Spotify, or even just the promotional posts on Blue Sky and Twitter. It's all extremely appreciated and literally the sole reason that we keep coming back. So don't stop doing that. We won't stop doing this. But Jerry, I think that's all the time we have for tonight. Unless you have anything else. I have been
That's
Nile
it.
Gerry with Jerry Thompson. This has been the Nile and Gerry Tea Podcast. See you again next Thursday. Bye bye. Love you.